welcome Ms. Sairee. I would also like to welcome Ms. Devi Rugi from Thai Hubli and Ms. Pooja Dugar from Thai Kolkata for supporting this, to making this session happen. And to help us moderate the session, I would like to invite Dr. Shilpa Suri, who is the co-founder of SNMIS Academy, and she's also a Thai member. I welcome Dr. Suri, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Devinder, for a quick introduction, and of course, Ritika for making this happen. Uh, Sairee, it's an absolute delight for me to introduce you to everybody here on this call today. A real woman of substance who decided to, venture into a completely uncharted territory and then create success not just for herself but to every member of her tribe. Kudos to you, woman. Let me just quickly tell a brief introduction of Sairee with all of you. Sairee, another beautiful coincidence. I'm delighted to know that you have a Chandigarh Connect too. So there are so many things, that connect all these people, all the people on this call. So Sairee Chahal is the founder and CEO of SHEROES, the world's largest women-only social platform, offering a complete online ecosystem for women via communities, a chat-based helpline, opportunities, and resources accessible via sheroes.com and Sheroes app. A serial entrepreneur, Sairee is credited with building the women's internet conversation in India, making a strong technology play to solve the problems of gender disparity in our country. Sairee's community meets deep technology approach has made SHEROES a globally formidable platform, changing the game for women and their aspirations. A technology entrepreneur and a liberal arts student, Sairee has straddled the best of both the worlds in her ventures, Newslink, FlexiMoms, and now, of course, SHEROES. SHEROES is set up to impact over 500 million women in the next decade under Sairee's leadership. Sairee is on board of directors for Paytm Payment Bank. She is also a fellow of Ananta Aspen Kamal Nayan Bajaj Fellowship and a member of Aspen Global Leadership Network, and the convener of SHEROES Summit, Asia's largest multi-city forum for women. An alumnus of JNU and MIT Ghaziabad, Sairee kickstarted her professional career before co-founding her first startup. She later worked at corporates like Hedrick and Struggles and CII. Recognized for her achievements globally, Sairee is a Devi Award winner, apart from Femina Achievers Award, Cartier Award alumni, Editor Choice for L'Oreal, Femina Women's Award, Business Today, Most Powerful Woman in Indian Business, and the list goes on. So, Sairee, thank you so much once again to spare your time and be with us on this call. And this is one of the most illustrious career introduction that I've ever read, and I'm sure the journey must have been very exciting. So please tell us, how did you make it this far, and how did this idea of giving a gender perspective to digitization occur to you?
All right. Thank you so much, first of all, everyone, for having me. And like you said, I have a Chandigarh connection. So, so when Thai Chandigarh calls, you go because it's home. My parents have a house in Chandigarh, but they live in actually Mandi Govindgarh.
I see.
Yeah, so I'm a Punjab girl. And and I didn't grow up in Punjab, actually. I've never lived there, but I grew up in UP in a small town called Muzaffarnagar. So I think, look, a lot of, I think my career has been, of course, a lot of serendipity has happened along the way. But they say even for serendipity to happen, you have to show up, right? Like you have to, get up, dress up, and show up.
Absolutely.
Irrespective of what's going on. And I think that kind of explains, I think, pretty much most of my career. I've worked literally every single day of my life, and worked in a very diverse, I think, there are two things I feel, life is a 2 by 2, if you're a consultant, then you do a lot of 2 by 2s, the top right quadrant, and that's where everyone wants to be. But, I think a great career needs range and depth, so you are a generalist, but you're also a specialist,
Wow.
and, you know some things really well, but you need to know a lot of things, across the horizon. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, then your life goes from finance to marketing all within the span of 2 hours. So
True.
a lot of my career happened due to two things. I think one is saying a lot of yeses, and I want to share a few examples. I started working very early. I think while I was at JNU, and I was still first finishing my first year, getting into second year. Uh, I got my first assignment, and I'll tell you how that assignment happened. We were in all college hostels to have waiting rooms, where there used to be a black phone where you could receive phone calls before
Yes.
mobile phones came.
Yes.
So uh, one evening we were all sitting there and having our chai and hoping somebody would call us there. Uh, and this couple walks in, very elegant looking couple, and they say, "Hey, we've come from Ministry of External Affairs, and we're looking for somebody to help us learn Russian because our next posting is Moscow." And I was a student of Russian language. I was still in first year and getting into second year, and clearly, I wasn't really ready to teach, but they said, "We're looking for somebody to give us basics in the language." And and so I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you." Like, I put my hand up, and that was my first assignment. But putting my hand up kind of helped me really crack my career, and I'll tell you how that happened. After I said yes to them, they used to come every weekend to study. We used to literally sit on a bench under a tree in JNU and take lessons for them. And they went off, right? They did their basics Russian and they went off to Moscow. But guess what? They passed on my number to everybody in the MEA. So for years, MEA was a source of freelance work while I was a student. And basically, you really have to show up and put your hand up, and that's exactly what I've done. So when Ritika says, "I need you," you show up, right? Or when somebody who's a partner for many years, and that's what you do, and you make time. And when I say show up, it really means you make time, you prioritize. And the thing about priorities is, if you have more than three, you don't have any, right? So you have to be a little ruthless along the way as well.
True.
But that's really how I started my career. And the second instance that I want to narrate is, uh, I used to have a part-time job at a magazine, and somebody came one day to say, "Hey, there's a guy who's looking for somebody who speaks Russian and knows media. I recommended your name." So I said, "Sure." And next day I want to meet this guy, absolutely salt and pepper looks, very elegant looking guy, very, humble, ex-merchant Navy. He said, I've sailed all my life. Uh, and I've missed news from home. And sailor depression is a big industry problem. And I want to do something about it. And I'm looking for people to be on my team. Okay, so here's somebody with a startup idea, and this is 99. Okay, nobody knew startups, nobody knew VC or tech or nothing, right? Internet was still on dial-ups and those old 486 machines and whatever. So uh, I didn't know anything about his idea. I didn't even know anything about Merchant Navy, but the guy seemed really genuine. So over that half an hour meeting, I ended up saying, "Okay, I'll be on your team," like, and I come back to my office and I tell people I'm joining a startup. And, and next day we met in an old dusty apartment,
Mhm.
cleaned it. The first thing we did as a startup was do, we said this is going to be our office. Uh, and that became my first startup. I ended up building that company. It got an exit. It still runs. It had 2/3 of a market share of the merchant navy business. We had
Wow.
3 offices within 3 years: Delhi, Cyprus, and Philippines. So all that happened because I met this guy and was sincere enough to say, yes to the opportunity. And
Wow.
uh, and I think that, and maybe that same thing has now repeated like hundreds of times over my career. I think it happens
Yes.
every day where you sort of say yes, and then sort of fulfill your commitment.
Mm.
And yeah, so over a period of time, I've done very diverse things. One of the earliest sort of promises I made to myself was that I will never move laterally, which means that I will not do the same thing twice, or I will never work for competition, or I'll never work in the same sector again, because I just feel that your learning curve slows down and one has to keep
Yes.
yourself, challenged at all times. And that's really been a formula. It's literally a rinse repeat formula. Show up, uh, say yes with instinct, and rinse and repeat in terms of learning new things. So really that's really what transpired.
Oh, lovely listening to that, Sairee. And trust me, I'm having real deja vu moments when I was listening to you, because though I have a much smaller setup than that of yours, but I mean, I can understand that the small little things, it's what it takes to build up a larger company and a larger corporate house. And I mean, this has been a real wonderful listening from you. Saidi, how does this idea of giving a gender perspective to digitization
Yeah.
in
So
a,
I grew up in. I think all of us have grown up, in an India where women are still not part of the picture. Like if you look at politics, or if you look at business, or even if you look at life, like right, women are still sort of running homes and running kitchens and running. Uh, Women actually run, but they don't get either paid for it or credited for it or recognized for it. And we're a we're a strange country. We are now a country with almost a billion people almost on the internet, 600 700 million people online, largest internet population, and the widest gender gap. So every year when the World Economic Forum releases their gender gap index, India is at the bottom of the barrel, right? We are next to Libya and Yemen,
yes.
and even Bangladesh has moved up. And considering that we have the aspiration to win this $1 trillion, $5 trillion economy, I think we need to sort of really think about this hard. Uh, so my thesis is very simple. We're a country with social barriers. Safety is a barrier. Commuting is hard for women. Families are orthodox. Women still have, like, every woman who has a job actually has another job at home, right? So that never goes away.
No.
So my thesis is that internet's enabling. Look at how much of a life runs on internet now, and why not use the same logic to build something that can benefit millions of women? And the truth is, internet is for everyone, and it has grown. So when I started Sheroes, there were only 10 million women online, just 10 million. Today that number is 300 million women online. And COVID has accelerated that. So the number of women getting onto devices has grown, it's growing, and it will grow further. And what are we doing here? We are doing very simple things. We are, one, making internet safe. 80% of internet traffic is still men, which means, what are the big categories? Because men built the internet for themselves. The categories are
Absolutely.
still, pornography, news, sports, betting, transactions, stock markets. What do women want when they come online? First of all, women want a safe experience of the internet. They don't want spammy messages. They don't want,
Correct.
pornographic pictures in their inbox, all of that. Second is, women want to better their lives. They want better health for themselves and their families. They want better income opportunities. They want equal wage. They want more opportunities for entrepreneurship. They want more access to capital and credit. Uh, and then they want to self-express, right? I think one of the things that's unsaid about women coming online is, I think, as Indian women particularly, our sense of space is encroached upon. Our me space doesn't exist. It's either family space, or we are a daughter, or we are a wife, or we're always sort of playing a role for somebody else. We
Correct.
don't have a me space. So Sheroes is a me space. It's for me, my dreams, what I want to do, my career, my expression, my hobby, you know, uh, where do I want to go as a person, my self growth. That's the thesis, and around that we've built a community. And it's funny that women across the country and actually across the world want the same things. They all want to grow. They want a sense of self. They want more money. They want, their name on a business or a hobby or a book or whatever their pursuit is. And that's what we're enabling. And we're enabling that by creating this community. So when women come to us, they find identity, they find a network that supports them. They find mentors in that network. They find organizations in that network. They find other women in that network. And then we make a huge investment in well-being. We run a helpline that women can use. We offer free legal advice, free health advice. So these are things that the community offers. And then, we run a large remote work business. We now run a micro entrepreneurship platform. And now we are setting up a digital bank for women. So
Wow.
essentially, look, all our lives are on the internet. And what we are doing is we're crafting it particularly with women in mind, and especially women who are
Honestly.
not part of, the cream really. All of us know, some of our families who are in tier two are, women who've never maybe, stepped outside the house, or women who had ambition, but, families didn't let that happen, or women who have potential but opportunity may. So we're really putting internet and women in the same space and saying, hey, magic can happen.
Yes, absolutely. What a fantabulous, idea and execution, and I mean, the journey that you have had and miles that you have crossed. More power to you, women, because women like you, they inspire everybody around, and create more opportunities for everybody around, especially women. So, Sairee, one, the woman. Two, you're an entrepreneur. Three,
Right.
you are in technology. So I think you're crossing all the wrong boxes. So tell me, what does it took and what does it take to break the boundaries in the tech industry, the stereotypes and the glass ceiling and so much more? And
Right.
how can women empower other women to succeed?
Right. So I think the great thing about tech is that tech is not anybody's domain. Unlike the manufacturing world or even the services businesses where you needed licenses and you needed real estate,
Hmm.
all you need to build tech is actually a phone or a laptop, really, and
Yes.
curiosity. So tech is actually a low barriers industry, and I encourage every woman, even if look, I'm not an engineer, but I've only worked in tech, you know.
Yes.
So if I can build tech, I think everybody can build tech, and the fun thing is that it changes so fast that everybody can learn, everybody can sort of build, and so one is, of course, I think uh, tech is an industry where you got to do your own homework, and that's what makes it great because anybody can succeed in tech, all, and there's so much of self learning and curiosity, that you can work with. So I think that's really, really important. And second is, of course, I think that you build something. It doesn't matter how ugly it looks, how unsatisfied you are with it, for version 1. When you build something, you get to learn so much, and you get to sort of get better with every release, right? Every time you ship a new release, it
Yes.
gets better. And look, I think today one of the most fascinating things that's happening in the world of tech is that you don't even need to code, right? The biggest movement in tech is now called the no code movement, which
Hmm.
means that if you have an idea, you can build a product, or you can, build a
Hmm.
service. You actually don't need real coding skills to build a tech company today, and I think that's really something that we should all leverage and sort of, have more fun with it and experiment more. I want to tell you about a business we have. It's now a $2 million
Hmm.
PNL, which was built with zero tech. It was built on Google Docs. It was built on
Oh.
Google Docs and, Excel, and a little bit of, hustle. And
Hmm.
it's only after we reached that mark we started coding. We said we'll first test the idea in the market, and then we'll build a product for it.
Hmm.
So a lot of that can happen. And I think the other thing I encourage women is to ask for help. Ask for
Yes.
straight pointed help. Don't ask
Hmm.
for fuzzy help. Ask
Hmm.
for real help, to say, like, do you know how this WordPress widget works, or do
Hmm.
you know how to set up a Shopify website, or how can, like, if you ask for specific help, you will get
Mm.
specific help, you know. And it's amazing how almost everybody you will go to will be able to help you, you know. I want to tell you, uh,
Mm.
my journey of building Sheroes has been a journey of actually working with founders and a lot of people who've done this before. Okay, so and when you ask people for help in a in a real way, you know, in you know, in an understandable, non-fuzzy sort of a way, they are able to help you because they know what to do for you or what not to do or where to point you. So asking for specific help is, I think, a really big deal. A lot of times we ask for help, but we don't specify, right?
Mm.
You know, even if you're saying I'm raising money, and if you don't say how much are you raising, the other person doesn't know who to send you to, or
Correct.
like where is your business, or so I
Mm.
think being specific with help. And of course, look, I think tech is really a wonderful space because you can do it from wherever you are, whosoever
Yes.
you are,
Mm.
and you can actually build a real business without really sort of uh, worrying about any of your barriers, you know. And that's really sort of, I think, magical. And yeah, so I think ask for specific help is my biggest takeaway in building a tech business, because you know it, and all you know, technology led professions do this, like doctors talk to
Mm.
doctors, lawyers will talk to
Yes.
lawyers, right?
Mm.
So entrepreneurs need to talk to entrepreneurs in the
Entrepreneurs.
ecosystem, say, how did you guys do this? I also want to do this, right?
Mm.
How do you hire, how do you market, how do you set up Google AdWords, or whatever that problem that you're facing.
I think you're absolutely right, Sairi, because I feel that, I believe that as women, when we are raised as girls, we are taught more to give help rather than to seek help, isn't it? So somewhere that link is missing. And I think this conversation with you today, there are so many take homes, and you're right. One of the biggest take homes is seek help and seek specific help. Thank you so much for that. Sari, another cause of concern and something that I want your inputs on, because you are working both as top-down and bottom-up approach. So, India is one of the, as you said, fifth largest economy, but its female workforce participation rates have sharply declined, and we are somewhere in the lowest corridor now. So,
Yeah.
how can India re-examine its policies through a gender lens?
Right. So, first of all, I am very sad to share that India doesn't have a gender lens on its policies. And I want to start with a small example. If you
Hmm.
go to Ministry of Skills and say women and skilling, they will
Hmm.
say, हम तो skilling ministry हैं, you know,
Hmm.
हमें women से कुछ नहीं करना. If you go to women's ministry and say women
Hmm.
and entrepreneurship, तो कहेंगे हम
Hmm.
women's ministry हैं, we look at जच्चा बच्चा and like, you know, safety and women's commission.
Hmm.
If you go to
Correct.
ROC, they will say, oh, we don't look at women, we look at startups and entrepreneurship. So the truth is, India hasn't allocated for women's economic contribution in any way at all. And whatever little was there, you know, for example, we are a country where women only communities have been a force of economic change, you know, self help groups, microfinance,
Exactly.
Asha workers, Anganwadi workers, we've been actually been cutting back on them. We've been cutting their feet off and, you know, reducing their funding. But I think it really is important for us to think about women and their economic contribution in a real way, whether it means, you know, women's ministry takes this or ROC takes this or somebody takes this up, right? I think all our narrative around women is just PR. You know, we only do women stuff for PR. We don't measure it. You know, what you don't measure doesn't improve, right? So there's practically nothing that we do for women's economic contribution in this country. So that's the sad reality. And the truth is, women's workforce participation is falling.
Yes.
And the truth is, there is no owner of that, right? Like there is no part of the government that actually is responsible for that metric. And the third is, unfortunately, India hasn't seen job growth in about a decade now, right? So if
Absolutely.
jobs are not growing and women were already not part of it, women are actually the worst receiving end here.
Yeah.
The
True.
silver lining here is that women uh, are actually realizing that we are basically on our own, so more women are becoming entrepreneurs and micro entrepreneurs and setting up on their own, and internet's enabling that. So I want to share some statistics here. So India has around 17 million women who are entrepreneurs in some form. So either as solo entrepreneurs, people who run their own boutiques and shops and parlor businesses, or
Correct.
rural entrepreneurs who run or rural solopreneurs. So there's 4 or 5 categories, about 17 million women. These 17 million women employ about 35 million people in their, in their fold. Today's estimates say, and this is a Bain report, and it's widely available on the internet, that this number will go to almost, this 15 million will become anywhere between 35 to 50 million women who will become entrepreneurs in the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe faster if we do some things right. And they will end up employing another 150 million people.
Wow.
And that's what, that's the $5 trillion economy we're talking about. So we actually have a roadmap to that. This is a clear path to putting women's economic contribution in the mainstream. What do we need to make that happen? We first need to increase women's access to capital.
Absolutely.
I always say सब महिलाओं को ज्ञान देते हैं, कोई पैसा नहीं देता है, right? I mean, come on, how do you, so when a man wants to build a business, we want to give them $1 billion. When a woman wants to build a business, we just want to give them free gyan, and then they should do this magically somehow. So clearly, double standardized here. And the other thing is that we clearly know that one of the biggest drivers is internet. I think COVID kind of pushed thing, in one way or the other, but we are clearly seeing this as a driver of growth for women coming online and women building businesses for, because this is the only option, right? The good thing is India has a very nice digital stack, payment stack, India stack. There's a lot of work that has happened, Aadhaar has happened, DigiLocker has happened. A whole lot of investment has gone in, which is good for everyone, and women will also be a beneficiary. But a lot more needs to happen for us.
Absolutely.
And not just acceleration, not just mentorship, but real capital, real metric, real government public policy push. I mean, if every ministry has to either report a gender number, or there's a ministry that maps women's economic contribution, then we've got a real winner on hands.
I agree. I think the way, self-help groups once came into being, it's time for a second churning. And I think it's time for a second revolution to happen, where again, it's going to be another bottom-up approach, because whatever picture you have shared with us, I think it is very disillusioning. And I think it's time again for, all the women to pull up their socks and jump into the arena and figure out things for themselves. But if the government supports and the policies and the state support is there, I think things become much, much easier. On that note, Sairee, I'm going to pass the baton on to Pooja. She's the co-host and for today's session. Pooja is a founder and director, Leap Years Preschool, and she is a TIE member from Kolkata. And here on, I pass on the baton to you, Pooja. Over to you.
Pooja, you're talking on mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Shilpa. Thank you for that introduction. And thanks, Sairee, for being here. And thanks, Ritika, for having me here. So I have been listening to the conversation, and it's, of course, very interesting, and it's very engaging. And, it really shows a picture which I think many fail to understand, because we all are there trying to pull each other. But of course, we need a lot of external and internal support. So we did discuss a lot of external support, which we could get. But I also feel there's a lot of internal support which women need for themselves. So, I was some time back, I was reading something of yours, and which says, I never sought permission. If I felt right, I just went ahead and did it. And that line actually stuck by me, because I myself, I'm like, I was a homemaker for years. And when my son was 10, I took up a career. And I actually got stuck by it, because I feel the biggest hurdle which women face is also themselves, because they constantly seek for approvals, validations, permissions, and everything. So what is your message to the women to overcome this whole part which seeks constant validation from the society, from men, from everyone around?
Absolutely. Look, I think it's very simple actually. It's like, you know, our life is given to us as us, right? Before we get labeled, right? And our labeling happens much later. So
Yeah.
I do think we all owe it to ourselves to live our lives as honestly to ourselves first. And of course, yes, we need our relationships and we need our validation. We all do. But I think our biggest accountability is to us. And I think somewhere along the way we forget that completely because there's so much of conditioning, right, about being
Yes.
human, or it starts early. We are asked to be nice, we are asked to be polite, we're asked not to make noise. So this conditioning seeps deep, and we live with that for a long period of time. But the truth is, we're only accountable to ourselves. We are born alone and we'll die alone. And if we don't live the life we want to, then what's the point of having a life in the first place, right? So I think it's not just about being a woman. I think we all as human beings owe it to ourselves to say this is a question of being honest to what I really care about. And I know there might be Sat Janam, but you only live once, at least one life at a time. So
True.
so that's how I feel. And I also feel like the truth is, a lot of times I think these are barriers in our own mind. How will my children manage, or what will my husband think, or I will give them less time. Chances are they're not even thinking about it. A lot of times we're just hoping they're dependent on us, and actually somewhere it's also part of how we sort of do things. And I guess and also, because in India we sometimes have the option to not do things for ourselves. It's okay to sort of not have something that's your own. But it's and I think it's also harder to be more accountable to yourself. Accountability is hard. It is not always easy to say I will build something, because there your chances of failure are, अगर कुछ करोगे ही नहीं तो fail कैसे होगे, right? So it's much easier to be comfortable and sort of say, hey, like I will, I'll be just like this, I'll get by. And I hope my family's sort of they need me and they're dependent on me. I will like to be around them. But you know what, not it won't shatter them if you do something for them. In fact, if children and families see women who are confident and taking charge of their own lives, that's the role model they want to see. You're setting an example for your children, for your families, for other women, for young girls, for the men, right? I think we have to stop babying our men. Like really, India's only country where men flaunt the fact that they can't cook and they can't find their socks and they can't sort of find anything in the house. How is this something to be proud of, right? So because we have done this, we let them get away with this,
Yes.
and this has to stop, right? I mean, क्या महिलाएं यही करती रहेंगी कि मेरी socks कहाँ है और मेरे को चाय बना दो? I mean, come on, we got to put an end to this and do things that we care for.
So I think the lockdown showed us a lot of that. When men used to cook and sweep and mop, there used to be picture flooded on the internet.
I know. Like, I want to tell you, if a grown woman was doing this, they
Yeah.
were ashamed, right? कि तुम्हें आता नहीं है. But all these men can't cook. They're sharing jala hua chapatis and thinking they are like rock stars.
I know.
How did we get this? How did we make this happen, right?
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's not cool at all, and we
I
got to call out the men here.
absolutely. So perfect. So I know, I mean, yes, absolutely. And what you said, that that whole self thing, and we need to really value ourselves. It's I think one thing as women we need to owe up to, rather than pleasing others. I think we should first go ahead and please our own selves and make ourselves happy to make the environment happy. Also, I feel, Sairee, that as women we sometimes tend to work with a very small canvas. Okay, we limit our own growth in our own mind. Okay, we do that. So what, according to you, should be entrepreneurship to women founders? Because uh, you've worked with bigger canvases, you've had your whole huge success story, but there are, and as you know, the statistics shows that there are very few, small percentage which actually rises up to that
Yeah,
ladder. So
yeah,
what would you say on that?
Right. So I think two things. One is, of course, that curiosity helps. When you sort of keep expanding your world vision, you keep reading about people who've done this. Look, nobody came with this pre-programmed, right? We all learned along the way. And the amount of work, people think that creating a large company means large amount of work. Actually, it's the opposite. When you run a large company, you can actually structure the work. But when you run a small company, you do everything because you can't afford to build a large company, right?
True.
So you have to think about this very deep. In fact, I really think women should consciously think about building large businesses, scale, think scale, because scale attracts capital, scale attracts everything. But when you're playing small, then what you're doing is you're basically closing yourself to the world. You're closing yourself to opportunities, and you have to work harder. It's much harder to sustain a small business because there is no roadmap to sustainability and there's no roadmap to profitability. The truth is, businesses exist so that they can grow. The fundamental nature of business is compounding, right? So if compounding can't happen, then you will be basically left holding it. And a lot of women don't step into large businesses, or don't think, because they think that their responsibilities will suffer or their families will suffer. The truth is, you'll be actually doing them a favor and yourself a favor, because once a business is scaled, you're not going to be working 24/7. I promise you. I mean, you can work 24/7, but for different reasons. You can build really an organization that's working towards the mission you have set up. So initially it might be hard, but everything is hard initially. A small business is hard and a large business is hard. And but if you it's like, it's a design problem. It's like when you start to build a house. If you have a plot of land, you can build a 5-story house or you can build a 1-story house, but you can't take the 1-story to a 5-story if you have not planned for it, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
exactly what I'm saying, that you have to think of your business as, how do I visualize my business when it grows up, right? And that work needs to be done today, right? Because it will show up in your product, in your hiring, in your capital, in the technology you use, in everything. And the work is the same. I can promise you, the work you do for a large business and the small business is practically the same, maybe less.
Okay. Wow. So I think the 1-story and the 5-story is going to stay with me, Sairee. I think it's something everybody should remember when they are planning their business, because, we generally end up thinking we'll start small and then we'll expand and then we'll do that. But the vision has to be set from the day one, is what I take back from what you've been saying. So yeah. So with that, I would like to invite our third co-moderator of the session. That's Sridevi Rogi, popularly known as Rogi, and she's from Thai Hubli. So over to you, Rogi.
Hey, thanks, Pooja. Delightful to hear each of you all talk, Shaili. I mean, so Shaili, so impressive notes around the statistics. Impressive to hear about how you've dealt with Russia speaking, as you know, and then built over it. Truly amazing and inspiring for a lot of us out here. What I wanted to ask is, in terms of the, how do you rate the women's representation across the internet sphere, right? There are a lot of technologists and inspirational speakers. So there is a cadre of women who've already got that notch. And there is somebody who we haven't touched, which I heard speaking about. So let's talk only about that focus in terms of the, the internet sphere they represent. So more about that.
Right. So look, I think women founders is still a small cohort. Like, you can literally, invite them to a house, and that's all. Like, we will all fit into a small house. You won't need to book a hotel for us. So but guess what? There were even fewer women who were internet founders, let's say 5 years ago. So we're better than 5 years ago, but we're nowhere near where we all should be and where we all could be, and what we could build. So for example, women yet haven't built enough unicorns, right? Or women haven't had enough exits, or the pipeline's still so small. Like, I sometimes joke with my team that, hey, there's so few women entrepreneurs that I'm like the aloo of the women internet universe, because I keep getting recycled so often in every subsidy, right? So it is funny because there is, and it's not like women are not trying, but what happens is, it's a matter of scale. Basically, if there are a lot of women who are now founders, who run businesses out of Jaipur and Indore and wherever they are. But I guess we still sort of not, uh, we're still not being aggressive enough. We're being nice, and we're being polite. And I want to encourage you guys to sort of like, you know put your voice out there. And it's okay if some people don't like you. It's all right. When one of the measures of success is when some people don't like you. If you watch the movie Guru, there is this dialogue which says, "Jab log ungli uthane lage to samjho tarakki kar rahe ho." So I think it's a real deal, because when you're nice to everyone, basically everybody's just walking all over you. And we need to sort of, as internet founders, be a little more aggressive, and sort of make our presence felt a little bit.
Nice, nice. So that's a nice dialogue. Yeah, it's going to register to all of us, and in terms of being aggressive and then still being not liked, but you go ahead, get your way out, right? So thank you so much. There's a piece where I heard you say about the diversification, right? Try and diversify as much as possible, and that's been your personal choice.
Yeah.
How about the risk element there? I mean, what are the do's and don'ts when you're trying to diversify and trying to see because there's so many options and everybody has everything in their hands, like a Google search, and they get on it, right? So what are those couple of tips you want to share with us?
Right. So I think the thing about diversifying is, it's again going back to you can only diversify once you have something to hook yourself to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You first stand for something, or you have to have something that will be your roots, right? So you grow from your roots. But if you don't have roots, you still have to work on the roots first to say, how do I become solid in something? And like with SHEROES, I think we first sort of set ourselves as a company. We actually started as a jobs and careers platform for women, and we got 4 million women first before we started doing other things. And now we're doing so many things that it's kind of crazy. But that's our root, right? We started from there, and we learned a lot about women's internet from there, and now we're sort of trying other things. But it all is still connected, and that's what you have to figure out, to say, what are the synergies here? What are your great skills? And sometimes diversifying is not so much about trying absolutely new things, but also finding adjacent things, or finding things that help you leverage what you have. And the other thing you have to realize is a little bit, there's something called founder market fit, right? It's also for founder personality types. Some of us are, we are ENTPs, or we are ENTJs, in terms of our personality types. But some of us are INTJs and Ps, right? Very different personality types. So we have to also figure out who we are, what we enjoy. Are you somebody who enjoys deep singular work, or you are somebody who enjoys platform wide work, right? And I think you have to take that call for yourself to say who you are and what works for you, because it has to work for you as a founder first before it works for the market, right? Because you will be the one putting your weight behind it.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of that has to happen. But I think from a business perspective, it it helps if you have one thing that starts working. It could be one product, it could be certain amount of scale, it could be success in something that you're really good at, right? And I would also encourage more women to think about productizing your offering, right? So we are very service led. India is service led. We offer services, which is great. I mean, we are the service economy to the world. But if you can productize your expertise, that's how you can diversify, which means you can keep building that formula, right? Basically, we're all trying to find a template or a product version or a rinse and repeat version of whatever you're working on. So like, I want to share an example. Like, we all have heard of this brand called Biba, right? It actually started as a boutique, and today it's a large women's brand. But what they've done is they've been able to productize fashion in a way that can scale, right? So depending on what you're trying to do, think of one, what is the product version looks like, and two, what are the adjacent categories for you to enter into. So for example, today SHEROES runs a employment vertical, a micro entrepreneurship vertical, and now we're getting into banking vertical. But what's common to all of us is a core network. Everybody who has a SHEROES login can use any of these verticals. So we're really not reinventing things. So yeah, that's really what I would say.
So the Myers-Briggs MBTI test for all of us is pretty much needed to know where we land, right? So that's really nice. Um, I'm going to be shamelessly asking for a help on this call. I heard you say ask for help, right? So tell more about SHEROES as it has to offer for Paisa, for women entrepreneurs on this call. How can they get connected with SHEROES as a platform to make the best utilization as a women entrepreneur, not for Gyan, let's be clear, as for money?
Right. So a couple of things. So one is, of course, so Cheetos is built basically so women can find a space for themselves. So it is a social network. So obviously on day one, you're not going to get help on day one. First you have to sort of show up. It's like introduce yourself. Establish your credibility to get help. I think a lot of getting help is also being credible to get help.
Yeah.
Second is, look, it's a women only space. So first of all, come talk about your business. I want to tell you, it upsets me when I see women founders not talking about their business enough. Even your bios on social media will not say this is my business. Like, your job is to talk about your business, right? So come and say what your business is, share about the story of your business everywhere. In fact, my Twitter handle says Sairee SHEROES, right? I'm so blatant about it because I want the world to know that, this is my business. Second, I run a group on SHEROES called Women Founders Raising Funds. So it's a group for us to sort of just share in a private space all the mistakes and all the learnings of raising funds. So search for it, and it's an invite only group, but I will add you there. Third, of course, you can set up your brand on SHEROES. So we can give you a verified profile. You can start talking to the community. We can make you a champion. You can set up your own community on SHEROES and start getting members. I know Facebook organic reach has died down. So if you want free users, members to talk about your business, set up a community on SHEROES. And now we are beginning to give small business loans to women. It's a new pilot, but hopefully, it'll grow from there. And of course, ask for help. There are champions on SHEROES. There are other women who are willing to help you. There are companies that are, talking about, ways you can work with them. Like there is the Glow and Lovely Foundation, which has opened their entire free courses, to women on the network. And then, of course, there's a lot of advice around money, advice around health. I think the thing about help is it's give before you get. And sometimes you don't have to give tangibly. You don't have to give like physically, but you have to give by way of adding to the community. You have to show up for the community. You have to say, hey, I'm a person, I do this, I'm happy to talk about this. It's almost like a virtual barter, right? When people trust you, they want to help you, right? And that's all you have to do. You have to build that trust right away.
Cool. Thank you so much, Sairee. I don't want to stand between the questions from audience and myself and talking to you, but I have one last question, which is, what do you want to leave?
Actually, I'm not worried about that at all, right? Like, I just want to live in the now, and I want to just do what I can do now. What happens after I'm gone is really none of my business, right? Like, honestly, and I hope the world will change fast, and so I don't want to cling on to what I've created. I hope it, people innovate on it, and it becomes better. I think I just want to look at the horizon I can look at. But I do hope, coming generations of women don't have the same sort of barriers. Even if they have, challenges, there should be new challenges. There should be more, these fundamental barriers of being a woman and not having basic access needs to go. And I think it's going away, but we still have a lot of pulling through to go, right? I mean, come on, I think within this century, we've seen women not having the right to vote, right to property, right to divorce, right to reproductive health. We've seen that in front of us. So we will also see women's access to, capital, women's access to economic resources, women's access to workforce, gender pay gap. All of these are things that should go away in our lifetimes. And hopefully, yeah, and that's, I think, if that happens in the next 50, 60 years, I think that's a great time to be in.
Great, highly motivating. Thank you so much, Sairee. Over to you, Shilpa.
Sairee, thank you so much. In fact, you broke so many myths today. You bursted so many myths for us, right? And I understand, my background is psychology. It has so much to do with how we have been raised, how we have been socialized as a gender specifically, and so many privileges denied, so many social privileges denied, so many professional privileges denied. I mean, just imagine, like, if a woman thinks of doing a master's in business administration, first thought would be maybe something like operations or HR, right? Her first choices would never be something like marketing or finance, isn't it? And this fear of mathematics has been seen more in girls than in boys, right? So what a long journey we cross, and what a long distance we cross, and ultimately when we stand up in the professional ecosystem, in a business ecosystem, um, yes, there is a huge disparity that lies. But somehow, I think we are waking up to this fact that it's not a deficit, but it's a difference, isn't it? The world has been ruled by, dominated by, though I'm not a feminist or anything, but yes, it has belonged to men for a very, very long period of time, especially money, finance, and business and all that. So, but they don't realize, I mean, people don't realize, men don't realize, the leadership doesn't realize that when we add a new dimension to leadership, when yin and yang, when they become balanced, even in leadership, we open doors to so many new opportunities. We open doors to so many new things that can happen, isn't it? So, Sairee, I can't thank you enough for sharing so much in such little time. I think you got to write a book now. I think it's time actually, compile all these thoughts, because these thoughts need to reach out to many more people, to many more women. It is really going to help them build up themselves, build up their businesses, their networks, and so much more. And I would really, I mean, I really don't want this call to get over, but we have our constraints. So again, thank you, Sairee, for this, for sparing time.
No, thank you. Thank you for
I
having
think that you could. And thank you, Ritika, for having Sairee on this call for us. And now I would request you, on behalf of TIE Chandigarh, TIE Hooghly, and TIE uh, uh, Calcutta, to thank Sairee for her presence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a brilliant, brilliant session today. And professionally, I think it's one of the most deeply relevant webinars or sessions that I've attended. And I think on a personal level, I'm just very overwhelmed, and I could just, break out crying, just thinking. And the reason for that is because when I started my career, I remember my mentor, mentioning that, why don't you just, pick up the phone and speak to this girl called Sairee. She's really into helping women out. And why don't you look for a job, Ritika, where, you could get a work from home kind of a, deal. And he connected me to her. I signed up for SHEROES. I had no idea what I was getting into. I was, a housewife for the longest time. And I remember she had this young kid in her team, and Sairee was trying to, getting her to call me every day. And I didn't know the technology behind it. I didn't even know how to write a sensible email. She would ask me all kinds of questions, and I'm like, I had no idea what you're doing. And then, try to screen share. And I think it started from there. And much later, when I needed more members in my team, I think 4 or 5 of my best teammates till date have been, have come to me from the SHEROES platform. So Sairee, personally, I cannot thank you enough. You have probably, given to me that dignity of life, which I was so, which is so important for a woman to survive, being a single woman. And I'm very glad that I did what I did thanks to SHEROES. And I think I've changed not just my life, but the life of my children as well. I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son. And I probably would have changed their lives forever thanks to you. So Coming from the bottom of my heart, a big, big thank you and a big hug from all of us. This has been a very, very interesting session, and everything that you said has hit home. And I guess one of the teammates usually does end up making a sort of pressy and a summary, and I'm sure they'll be just called Gems of Wisdom, as simple as that. So on behalf of TiE Chandigarh, TiE Hubli, and TiE Kolkata, on behalf of our president, thank you so much. And big thank you to all the three moderators, Shilpa, Pooja, and Sridevi. You've done a fantastic job. And Sairee, thank you so much once again. We hope to see you in this part of the country sooner now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, we do.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Once again, I want to encourage you to reach out. You know, internet is open for everyone. So I've shared my email ID on the chat. I know somebody wanted to write in. So feel free, everybody who's attended, and I look forward to chatting in person sometime. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. Yes. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ritika. Thank you, Sairee, once
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Devi, thank you. It was great being on the same platform with us. Thank you.